So I was building a house the other day, as usual. It was a suburban house, and after I'd finished, I sat down on my sofa in my living room, and I was wondering to myself, what can I build next? I'm always wondering what I can build next, so I looked out of the window and I thought to myself, hey, what's that blue thing out there? What is that? That's the sky. I built loads of stuff on the ground, tons of it, but I've never built a house in the sky. And it's not that I've never wanted to, it's that I've just never had the right format to do it until now. Hello friends, and welcome to another Minecraft build along. In this video, I'll be showing you the process that I went through to make my sky house. And a lot of you guys might actually recognize this house, as this house is heavily inspired by the house from Up. It takes a lot of details of that house. It's not 100% accurate, but it's close enough that I'm sure that if you've seen the film, you might recognize it. It's pretty hard to miss. You guys have seen Up, right? Of course you have, the film where that grumpy old man's flying above the world and his house suspended by balloons. It's a great film. You guys should watch it if you ever get the chance to. Well, this house is heavily based on it. Not 100% perfect, but still pretty close, I think. I did make some changes, just some personal style changes. This house isn't particularly detailed. The house isn't really what I was trying to spend the most time on in this build. What I really wanted to do is make a house in that style. I just wanted to make a house that was suspended by balloons above the earth. That's all I really wanted to do, and I definitely succeeded in it. I did make a couple of changes here and there. You can see me actually deliberating what to do with the porch. I keep messing about with it, trying to make it a little bit nice. I started off a bit too simple. I started off with just oak, so I decided to add some dark oak in there. And then I decided to add some stairs in there instead of just using planks. And then I decided to add more stairs, and I added a colour, and I also made it so that a certain part of the porch was given a bit more attention than the other part, just to splay it up a bit. I also decided to mess about with the windows. I decided to make them look a little bit nicer. I bring them in by one row. I also add a border around the bottom of the house, which actually takes me quite a long time. So the house is obviously quite a few colours, and I decided to split that all up by adding an even border going all the way around the house, but I used a few different materials. First, I tried to use wood, and then I used like regular clay, and then I went back to wood, and then I started messing about with certain parts of the house. I started adding in more windows. I started messing about with the back of the house. As you can see, that's supposed to be a drain pipe. I actually had the image of the Up house up on my second monitor whilst I was building this, and I was adding a few details here and there where I decided applicable. Then I decided to add a nice little bit of oak wood stairs going around the house. First the ground floor, and then I added a bit to the second floor. Then all that was left really was to add the giant window on the front right hand side of the house. Plus there's one on the back, and there's also one on either side as well. That's one of the things that I really love about this house, is it's got some really massive, cool, very distinct windows, and I really like them. I did find it difficult, however, to actually build the roof. The roof I found quite a bit of a challenge because I wasn't sure what material exactly to have in the roof. First I started off with a bit of stone, and then I decided I didn't like the stone, and I changed it to clay, and I changed it back. You guys will see this in the video, but you can see me doing the opposite part of the roof right now from the first part, as that's actually even. I had to make that symmetrical in relation to the first part of the roof, and now you can see me adding a bit of a border around it. I'm adding a nice little bit of quartz, and now you can see me messing about with the materials. I wanted it to be cyan stained clay because I like the colour and texture a lot better than the actual stairs, but it just didn't work out because I wanted the roof to be a very particular shape, and that could only be achieved with the stairs, unfortunately. And I also had to connect the opposite, the long part of the roof, to the big part of the roof, so it really stairs was the only option, just because I knew that it'd look good. And then I realized on the opposite side of the house, of course, we have another roof, and I built that up very, very quickly. And as I'm looking at this, actually, I'm not sure how soon it is I realized that I actually did part of this house wrong. I realized that there's a whole section of this house that is missing a little bit, but I suppose that I'll get onto that later. I add in some more windows where I need to, I add a bit more colour to the house, I also add all of the glass, and I also add some window ledges in the form of quartz slabs. I also then, this is the big part, I realised that really, I'm missing a big part of this house on the right hand side. I'm missing like another wing of the house, and I make that very quickly and I attach the roof to it, and I think that it looks quite nice now. I wasn't sure about it because it looked very, very simple, but then I added it. I also added a window and a little bit of a window ledge, and I did the same to the front of the house as well. After I did that, it was basically some more troubleshooting stuff. I had to fill in the walls, I had to add a bit more glass, and then I just made the bottom of the house look a little bit nicer. The way that I did that, which I'm not showing very well here in the actual footage, is I did oak wood stairs around it. I also added a chimney to the center of the house. The chimney's multi-purpose. Not only does it kind of break the house up a little bit, not only does it kind of add a bit of extra color to the house, but it also gives a place for the balloons to attach. And the way that I do the balloons is I do kind of like a circle of oak wood planks. It's just about a circular shape, and then I add loads and loads and loads and loads of varieties of clay around the circle, as you can see now. And I figured that it's not really a good idea to place blocks individually. Like, for the balloons, which is what I'm placing, I didn't really want to place like a yellow stained clay followed by red, followed by pink, followed by magenta. I wanted to place them in groups, as you can see here. I figured that it'd be much better to place them all in groups, and that way it's just a little bit easier, it gets built up faster that way, and I think that it looks a little bit better, it looks a little bit more natural, and if nothing else, I guess that you can just say that the balloons are a bit bigger that I'm using in this particular house. So I'm just building all of this up in a very normal way, and this actually takes quite a lot of time. This is one of the most time-consuming processes of the tutorial. And just in case you were wondering, by the way, why did I decide to use the oak wood plank ring? Originally, I was going to have, if you've ever seen a hot air balloon, how it has that burner, that obviously the burner keeps like the big giant balloon inflated and it keeps everything floating along. Well, I did think that maybe that I wanted to have like a similar sort of thing at the base of the balloons, so it kind of makes sense that all of the balloons form one giant one, and that's kind of how it works, with the hot air rising the balloons and making it flow. I thought that that might actually be a cool idea. I still might add it on between now and when we actually have a look around the house, just me and you guys, but I don't actually add it in the portion of the video that you see here. I may add it in the future, because I think it's kind of cool. You can see me just finishing off the top of the balloons there. It's not particularly a great balloon shape, it's more like a big giant ugly looking blob, but balloons nonetheless. I then decide to fill in the bottom of the house. I mean, it makes sense, you kind of need a floor for the house, don't you? Of course you do, that'd be insane if we didn't. And after I've added that, I then add an island to the house. I figured that if the house was being ripped up, you'd probably get a bit of land ripped up as well, right? So if you actually like attach balloons to your house, you flew away, I'm sure that you'd get a little bit of land as well because of like concrete supports and all sorts of stuff. So I decided to add that, so we have a little bit of an island going around our house. This also takes a lot of time as well because it's a lot of manual landscaping, and it's a lot of like starting off with a big shape and making it crumble and making it look quite natural. I try to make it look as natural as possible down below here. I tried to make it look as though it's actually been ripped up from the ground, and I figured that it'd eventually taper down into like a bit of a pointy shape. Like, I figured that there'd be more mass in the center where it's been ripped up than the sides. And once I finished that, which I just have, I realised that the little mini house that I have down below wouldn't make much sense being there, because I figured that maybe this is where I've ripped it up from. So I blow up the area down below, and now it looks as though that house has actually been ripped up from the ground, and a couple of zombies spawn in the darkness of the house and they burn to death. I add some trees and some grass life to the island, and by the way, I also add some falling things from the island, so like a furnace and chunks of land and a bit of a tree. And you're going to see in a second here the footage fade away, and it's going to skip, and after I made that house, after I added the falling debris, I was like, how can I make this a bit more Minecrafty? Because it needs to be a little bit more Minecrafty. So I decided that the way that the island would actually be propelled, the way that it would be pulled in any particular direction, is by flying pigs. I decided to actually have the island be pulled by flying pigs. So I start off by building one, and it's not exactly the dimensions of a pig. I think this is actually a little bit smaller than your regular run-of-the-mill pig, and it's just like the pig body, and I've made it so that the legs are kind of like trailing along behind Mr. Piggy, and I give him wings, basically. I also have to shape his body into what I would think is much more of a realistic shape rather than just like a rectangular pig shape. Just because it's a bit of like a fantasy build. And I also give him wings, of course, little angel wings. And that's the first pig, but I figured that one pig really wouldn't be able to pull the island, would he? He'd kind of need a partner. So we have Mr. Oinksalot, and we also have Sir BaconsBurg, who is currently being built. I start with the head. It's a very rough copy of the pig that I've actually just made, and he is actually a little bit different. The dimensions of his body and head, well, his head's actually alright, kinda, but his body's slightly bigger in some way, shape or form. When I actually attached his legs, it didn't go as smooth as possible, but it doesn't really matter. No two pigs are the same, so it doesn't matter that one is a little bit different to the other. All that matters is that we have our two pigs pulling at almighty, a glorious Sky Island. Look at that thing. Look at him. His leg's actually a little weird on the front, if you can see. I don't think that his leg's right. His legs look really skinny at the top. That's not right at all. But I make him in a similar fashion to the previous one, and then shape his body a little bit. I make him a bit more round than blocky, and I also give him wings. I decided to feed him a nice little bit of Red Bull. He loves Red Bull, and I decided to give him some wings. And then I attach them together and to the island with web, because that's how the balloons attach to the island or to the house. I decided to do the same thing with the pigs. They each have one string, and I also attach, I'm not sure if you just saw it in that video, I also attached like a little plank to the ground where the actual web meets it, and I placed a stone slab on top of it as well, so they're actually tethered. But that's the process of me making it. That took me about an hour and a half. Why don't I show you the finished product? So this is the up house. I actually haven't had a chance to look at it properly yet since I've built it, and I'm just realizing now how absolutely insane this thing is. I think that this turned out really, really well. You guys will have to let me know whether you like this and whether you'd want me to make anything else in the future that's a little bit crazy like this, because I love projects where I don't have to worry about making a tutorial and I can just go absolutely mental, and I think that this is a perfect case of that. I don't think that we could have came up with a more insane idea here than a floating house island propelled by balloons and pulled by two pigs lashed to it that can somehow fly. I don't think that we could have came up with a more insane idea. So why don't we actually take a look at this thing? I've done the inside just a little bit. I've not really done much. All I've done for the inside here as we land on our island is I've added a floor down at the bottom. I also added a ceiling, and I also cleared it of all of the skeletons and zombies. Yeah, it was dark in here, and there were loads of skeletons and zombies that I had to clear out. I actually had to kill them all. In here, we just have it all nice little. We have a sofa and a TV, because what else would you want to look at whilst you're floating around on a sky island? You don't want to look at anything that might be interesting out there. I doubt that anything's interesting out there as we look at our flying pigs. We may as well watch telly. What's on? Emmerdale? Perfect. Much better than what's going on out there. And I just added a bit of a table and a chair. I really didn't know what to add, to be honest. The entire point of this house isn't really that it's so much a house. It's just that it's just kind of there. It doesn't really have to function that well as a house, in my mind, it just has to be one. And I think that it actually looks quite good from the outside, and you could definitely customize the inside a little bit better as well. We have a tree here, and by the way, it snowed. I don't know when it snowed, I wasn't paying attention, but there's actually snow atop the balloons, and there's also snow on the island. When did that happen? Was anyone paying attention? With the snow on the island, we have a tree, which is quite nice. I added another tree originally here, which you can see the stump of it, but I decided to get rid of that because I didn't really want to add anything else to the island. It might have been cool if we added a couple of like human things, like if we would have added like a barbecue and stuff like that on the island, but hey, keep it simple, right? These are the two posts that the pigs are lashed to, by the way. If you want to know their names, the one on the right is Mr. Oinksalot, and the one on the left here, the bigger one, is Sir BaconsBurg, just in case you're wondering what their names may be. We also have a couple of interesting things below the island. We have just a couple of falling bits of debris, like we have a crafting table here, and we have some like trees, and we have like a furnace, and obviously we could add more and more and more, and it could lead to the ground. And I did think that a cool idea might be that if you had some sort of like parkour path all the way up to this house, it'd actually be quite cool. I think that it'd be really awesome if like we had loads and loads of debris that eventually did taper down into like a tree or something, and you could climb the tree and you could actually very slowly and carefully make your way up to the house. I think that that'd be a cool avenue. Of course, we have all of these balloons which are suspending the house in the air, and I mean, this isn't like a realistic collection of balloons, and there are some holes in this thing, of course, but I mean, it's difficult to do, and I didn't really want to make it take as long as it possibly could have. I would have liked to have shaped this a little bit better, and something that I also thought about adding, by the way, was a big giant fire here, like a big giant fire pit. And hello, zombie! Do you have any friends in here? You might have some friends now, just the one zombie. You, my friend, you've got nowhere to go. There's nowhere for you to go other than down. So I'm just gonna, where are you go? Okay, well, you know what? You can slowly fall through the air. So I did want to have a big giant fire pit which would suspend the balloons, like hot air rises, therefore the balloons rise. But I decided against it just because I made that out of wood and I didn't want to set on fire, basically. And of course we have the two pigs. Can you guys remember the names? Here we have Mr. Oinksalot. He's the smaller of the two pigs, but I think that he looks a little bit better. Here we have Sir BaconsBurg. He is a little bit bigger and honestly does not look as good. One of his arms, or trotters slash legs, that's the word I'm looking for, looks a little bit weird, honestly, but it doesn't really matter. I suppose that that's all there is to this house. I suppose it's quite simple, really. What's that button? There we go. I suppose it's quite simple, really, but I love this house to bits. I really do. It's a project that I've been wanting to work on for absolutely ages. I've wanted to do an up house ever since I started Minecraft all of those years ago, and I never really wanted to do it, as there's a zombie on the roof. Can you guys see the zombie? I never really wanted to do it because I'd have to make a tutorial for it, but I think in this format it's cool because, I mean, I can actually make a video out of it, and I think that it's pretty interesting to watch. And if you guys wanted to replicate this in some way, I think that you have the basic understanding of how you could actually go about it. I mean, I know that it's in like 8 times speed, and you know there's no measurements, but I'm sure that you could. I hope that you draw some inspiration from this, is what I'm trying to say. I hope that you guys like this. If you do, I'd really appreciate it if you could give this video a like. This is my favourite view. If you could give this video a like, I'd really appreciate it. Comment down below, do you want to see any more of these build long videos? I love making these, and I think that as long as we just have like 1 or at the very max 2 a week, nah, probably never even 2 a week, just probably 1 a week. If we only ever have 1 of these a week, then I don't think that there's any harm in this. I love being creative and building stuff like this, and if you guys have some mental suggestions, then let me know down there in in the comments. I'd love to hear it. If you have something that's absolutely insane that you think that I'd actually like to build and I'd be able to build and look awesome for the channel, let me know if you have an idea for the build along series. Check out the cards in the description below. I'll be leaving all of the other types of videos that I've made like this in the past. I have done a couple of them, but the only other like proper decent build along that I've made is my Kraken house, which I would absolutely recommend because that one is awesome as well. Thank you very much for watching, guys. Subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you in the next video.